Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today, will Tennessee rue the day that they let Nico walk? What are we talking about? Well, I assume if you're watching this video, you guys already know this, but in case you don't, I'll kind of give you guys the big picture thing of what happened with Nico Iamaleava and Tennessee last week. Basically, Nico does a holdout from Tennessee, skips Friday practice. He's basically holding out, saying, hey, Tennessee, you guys pay me $4 million a year, which he's already reportedly was getting paid either $2 million or $2.5 million a year to play at Tennessee. And he's like, hey, you guys pay me this $4 million or I'm going to go ahead and enter the transfer portal. Tennessee basically says, hey, we're not paying you that, dude. You can go ahead and enter the transfer portal. And a matter of fact, Tennessee effectively kind of kicked him off the team after all of this stuff happened. I believe the statement they released is like he was like no longer with the program. So Nico's gone, enters the transfer portal, ends up going to UCLA for reportedly less money than he would have been making at Tennessee. There's also like some reports that I saw too that's like, oh, well, Nico actually, he wasn't leaving Tennessee for money at all. It was actually because of the offense that Tennessee was running. And Nico didn't like that offense. And he likes the pro style that UCLA is running, even though UCLA had one of the worst offenses in all of college football last year. They were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten last year. So a lot of that stuff doesn't make sense. It seems like maybe Nico's camp, which is kind of controlled by his father, from what I can tell. You'd like to think that a father has the best interests of his son in mind and is trying to put his son in the best situation to succeed in life. It seems like that may not be the case here, but either way, a lot of people out there in the college football media landscape have been giving Tennessee a lot of praise for how they handled this situation, saying, hey, this is a good job that you guys, held strong here. You didn't give in to his demands. You didn't let your program be held hostage by this guy who clearly cared more about his bank account than wins on the field and, trying to do what's best for his team. And even too, like, this isn't a thing that leaders do. You would think that like you want your quarterback to be a leader. A lot of people have just been giving Tennessee a lot of praise for holding strong and having a standard for how to handle situations like this. And that's kind of been the overall sentiment from everyone in college football. But there is one voice out there that does not agree with that sentiment, and that is Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer came out on his podcast. I think he does a podcast with either Mark Ingram or Reggie Bush. I think it's Mark Ingram. And he had this to say about the Nico situation at Tennessee. And he said they will regret this decision of letting Nico go. New Urban Meyer on Nico Iamaleava's departure. Tennessee is screwed. They got a problem. Oh, excuse me. They got a problem. Everybody's saying, nice job, Tennessee, making a stand. I've got a little comment on that. Tennessee plays Florida usually every year in October. Can you imagine that game's going the other way and Coach Heupel grabs the microphone and stands on the 50-yard line in Neyland Stadium and says, it's okay, I made a stand way back when. If you go ahead and read all of Urban Meyer's quotes from that, basically his point is that, hey, you guys might be taking victory laps right now on this situation, but how are you guys going to be feeling when it's the middle of October and you guys are 4-4 and you guys might not be making a bowl game? How are the fans going to be feeling then? How are the coaches going to be feeling then that now maybe some of them might be at risk of losing their jobs? How is the athletic department going to be feeling about this situation? And maybe it would have just been better for them to pay Nico because he makes them a much better football team. And I think it's really, now maybe some of this too, I will admit, maybe some of this with Urban Meyer, and yeah, maybe Tennessee fans can help me out here, and maybe Urban, with the whole rivalry with Tennessee Florida thing, he still always has a little bit of animosity towards Tennessee, and maybe because that's a thing too that I've noticed a lot with like Desmond Howard. You can't, he's every time he's saying something publicly about Ohio State, he's doing that to trigger their fans and he's doing it intentionally. But you kind of have to, like, if you don't know that, you're like, what the heck is his deal here? So I don't know if Urban does the same thing with Tennessee. But with that being said, I'm surprised Urban would take this stand because it is pretty easy to say, oh, well, you guys have the money. Why don't you guys just pay Nico because it's better to have Nico be your quarterback than to roll with, transfer portal question mark. Or I believe the other two options they have a quarterback now are going to be a redshirt freshman or a true freshman. It would be better to rock with the guy that had a 10-2 record and took you guys to the college football playoff last year. The reason that it was smart for Tennessee to make a stand here is you don't want to set a standard of this, because let's say they meet into every one of Nico's demands of what he wanted financially. What's that stopping anyone else on this Tennessee team from doing the same thing? From going to I don't know who the people would be that you go to on Tennessee to try and get a raise, but you go to them. Somebody on the defense is like, hey, if you guys don't give me what I want, I'm walking. They're wide receivers, they're O linemen, they're running backs, guys coming to the program in the future. What is stopping them from doing the same thing that Nico did? And you don't want to, like, Kirby Smart kind of said something similarly, like a few weeks ago. It's like, you don't, basically his point was like, you want guys that want to come and win championships, not guys that want to come there and make money. And clearly, as we're seeing with this Nico situation, he seemed like he was more one of those guys that wanted to make money. And you would think, again, Urban Meyer, head coach, you most of the time when coaches in the media see a coach get praised or criticized, 99% of the time it feels like in any sport they side with the coach. You think Urban, of all people, would side with the coach here and be like, hey, this guy's got to have control of his locker room. He's got to have control of his locker room. So it's kind of puzzling to me that Urban said that. And then also, too, a lot of people were pointing this out with Nico, too, was like, hey, the big reason that Tennessee didn't meet into his demands and didn't necessarily weren't, in a rush to give him like a big, massive raise after the way the season ended is because Nico wasn't that good last year. He was not that good last year. He was fine. He was adequate. But statistically, this dude was a middle of the road SEC quarterback. Like, that's what he was. He threw 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Comparatively to like 2 years ago when Tennessee went 10-2 with Hendon Hooker, that team had a top 10 offense in all of college football. I believe this year Tennessee was ranked somewhere in the 70s. If you take out the out-of-conference games for Nico, I think he only threw like 10 touchdowns in SEC play. The reason Tennessee was winning games last year wasn't because of Nico. It was because they had a spectacular defense with a bunch of studs on that side of the ball. And offensively, they relied a lot on Dylan Sampson, who I think is going to make a really good NFL running back because he's going to get drafted next week. Yeah, next weekend. That's why Tennessee was winning football games last year. It wasn't because Nico was so spectacular. Now, does that mean he couldn't have been spectacular this year? Maybe he could have been. Maybe he would have been a lot better in year 2 as a starting quarterback. When you look at him play, you can see the physical attributes. He's tall, big, strong, huge arm, athletic, but he didn't show it on the field. It's all theoretical at this point. Cool, you scored some touchdowns against Chattanooga. You didn't play well in the Arkansas game. You didn't play in the Ohio State game. Now, a lot of people say the Ohio State game. Again, Tennessee fans, you guys can tell me what happened in that game. Offensive line didn't play well. Nico got sacked a bunch, and the receivers weren't getting open, and you might have just ran into a buzzsaw there with the Buckeyes, with the kind of determination they were going with the playoff last year. But Nico wasn't playing that well last year. That's why there wasn't a robust market for him in the transfer portal. That's why North Carolina was like, yeah, no thanks. Tulane was like, no thanks. Because I was also thinking, too, Nico entered the transfer portal and was like, oh, USC will take me. And USC was like, nope. No, Notre Dame will take me. No. Because even, too, that's what's the worst thing about the Nico situation is, like, this is the thing that people are just going to leave. Like, the only way, just even in a long-term standpoint, this is going to hurt him financially. Because if you're paying attention to the NFL draft this year, like, Jalen Milroe is going to be a first-round pick this year. He's showing up on draft night. I don't think he's showing up on draft night because he's going to get drafted in the 3rd round. Like, Jalen Milroe is getting drafted based off physical attributes and theoretical potential. That's why he's going to get drafted in the first round. If you get drafted in the first round, you're going to, even if you flame out in your first spot, you're probably going to get a second, third chance, especially if you're someone like Jalen Milroe that has those physical attributes. But now, I think for Nico to be a first round quarterback, which is what you would think he would be based off of his high school profile, he's going to have to be like Jaden Daniels good. That is how good he's going to have to be at UCLA. He's going to have to be that good, because this is just going to be a red flag that follows him the rest of his playing career. People are going to be like, oh, I'm kind of scared that guy wanted to go to UCLA over Tennessee in this really good football situation that they're in. And God forbid too, that one of these young kids that they have at Tennessee right now steps into that quarterback position and balls this year, which, I mean, could happen. I don't know. Maybe. Like, it's not like they're not like 4-star recruits. They got to have some talent. Heupel got them on the team for some reason, right? But feel sorry for the kid. Feels like he's got some people around him that maybe don't have his best interests at heart. This will be the last thing I'll say, though, with Tennessee. This maybe be the last little parting gift that I have for you guys here. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a story, and you guys probably see the Iowa State thing behind me. I'm obviously an Iowa State alum. Been going to Iowa State games since like I was a little kid. We had a situation 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago at this point, where we had a starting quarterback who was probably one of the higher rated quarterbacks that we ever had. His name was Hunter Deckers, big, old, strong, athletic lefty guy. Started 1 year, didn't necessarily do the best, but was going to be a second-year starter. In the state of Iowa, we have this huge like gambling scandal that happened where a bunch of guys on Iowa and Iowa State basically got kicked off the all the football teams and the wrestling teams for sports betting. Some of that stuff was very innocent stuff where they just bet on like NBA games or something, and they're stupid enough to do it like in the athletic facilities. A lot of them were like impersonating, like, or they had their parents' name on it, and that's how they were able to bet, because some of these guys were under 21. Anyway, our starting quarterback was in that, ended up having to get kicked off the team. And at that point, it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? Who's our quarterback going to be? We stay strong. We don't go to the transfer portal. We get a guy named Rocco Becht, who was going to be a redshirt freshman quarterback. Now, all of a sudden, Rocco Becht's had 2 straight winning seasons for Iowa State, took Iowa State to the Big 12 championship game last year. And he's awesome. And he's one of the most beloved quarterbacks that we've ever had in school history. Now, our school history isn't that rich with success and NFL superstars, but we're very happy with the situation that we have a guy on the team that wants to be there. He's played well at Iowa State. He could have went to a bigger program if he wanted to, but he's wanted to be a committed Cyclone. And hopefully you guys get that same silver lining out of this, and you get a guy that actually wants to be there, because you guys do have a really good football program, man. You guys have been fun to watch the last few years. I'm glad that you guys are back. Hopefully you guys get that situation. Maybe you go roll with one of the young guys. Maybe you go with somebody in the transfer portal. I wish you the best, man. You guys deserve it. You guys didn't deserve to be in this situation. Sucks for you. So anyway, I've been talking too long. That's going to do it for this episode here today. If you like this episode, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And leave a comment. Doing all 3 of those things, or one of those things, helps us out in the algorithm. It helps people find this channel. It's the best way that you can do to support this show. It costs you absolutely $0. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this situation. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to check out some other videos here on the Sports Detective Podcast channel page. I'll talk to you next time.